Welcome to the Hair Metal Guru. My name is Anthony. They call me the Guru. And today you're going to see Brian from the Hairband Basement here, but we have a special guest. We have Steve Blaze, founding member, lead guitarist, and songwriter for Lillian Axe, member of the Louisiana Music Hall of Fame, and the leader of one of my favorite bands of all time. Steve, welcome to the show.
Thank you guys, man. Anthony, Brian, hey man, thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to this. You guys, I followed you and I saw the really nice, kind, very thorough review you did of our material and albums in the past, and I was like, and very rarely have I ever said, "Hey, I want to reach out to these guys and be the aggressor and getting an interview together." But as soon as I saw that, I'm like, I really like these guys because they get it, and they're and just your insights on our material and things. And I said, yeah, I would like to take it talk to these guys about things because you guys you understand the music, and I'm sure you probably have a lot of questions that would be fun to get into with you. So thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. And I remember when you commented on that video, and I was like, is this the real Steve Blaze? How would I know?
Right.
So I texted Brian with a picture and I said, dude, I think Steve Blaze wants to talk to us. And he's like, no way. So anyway, reached back out. So we've been planning this for a little while.
Good.
And you're right. I mean, there's so much to know about this band and you and your career. And so I just hope that I just want this to be a conversation. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of Lillian Axe and the history and whatever you're willing to share is awesome. So I'd like to start with this. Obviously, you're known for Lillian Axe, but you must have had some sort of music career before the band started. And if you can trust the almighty Wikipedia, apparently you were in a band called Oz. So could you maybe tell us a little bit about the pre-Lillian Axe Steve Blaze music career?
Sure. Well, it actually started when I was 6 years old. Parents got me, and I remember it was a $19 classical guitar, and it was for my 6th birthday. I can remember the day I walked outside and they had it on the picnic table in the backyard, and it was in a cardboard box, one of those weird oblong boxes shaped like a guitar. And I was like, wow, this is great. They put me right into lessons. So right at school, I think I was in 1st grade. And so I even remember the teacher, Mr. Spano, and we started playing. And then next thing you know, after a few months, it's funny, man, because I can remember when he told my parents, I can picture this man and telling my mom, he's way too good. I can't teach him anymore. He's got to move on. He's got the gift. So they took me and put me into classical flamenco guitar lessons. I was, 6, 7 years old. Sure. So for the next few years, that's what I was doing. I was learning classical, and I had a teacher, Miss Edie Leiby was her name. She was kind of when I look back and think about it, she was kind of a flower child. And she always taught in big dashiki, those dashiki shirts, big sleeves, and she sit with her legs crossed and play. And she was so nice, and she taught me classical and flamenco. So it was all hand techniques, and did that for several years with her. Started doing talent shows. At the risk of sounding, I'm not trying to sound any braggadocious, but I would win them all. I guess an 8-year-old playing Malagueña is fairly, so.
You don't hear that often.
I would do that, and then that's when I kind of started realizing that I liked being in front of people. I wasn't freaking out and getting nervous, and and I obviously liked when people would appreciate it. So that whole thing started having a little reputation as being the child guitar player guy locally that was doing more than smoke on water. And I did that for a long time, and in the high school, I did sports all through high school and stuff. But at the end of high school, I started the guitar club at my high school, and then started meeting other guys and other guitar players. And then, before long, I'm in a band. And then, I remember the first song, and I didn't know, because I was jumping right into, playing classical guitar, and also all of a sudden I have to get a Les Paul. And I remember my first Les Paul was a Les Paul Jr. Tobacco Sunburst.
Mhm.
Some guy for like $200. Found him in the newspaper, and I remember getting the guitar. Like I didn't know. Like this is electric. Don't I need an amp or something, or got to plug into something? It doesn't sound right, you know. And so got in a band. We called ourselves Crimson with a K and a Y. And first song I ever had to learn was Sweet Lorraine by Uriah Heep. And then it's like we were playing War Pigs and Styx and Bad Company and all this. And I was in high school. It was my high school buddies, and they were good though. So I was kind of starting to get attracted to like the upper players, the upper echelon of talented musicians that were serious about this. Because, you know, there's a lot of kids that play guitar in high school and they're just like, yeah, try to impress the ladies or whatever. But, you know, I was like,
Right.
that's what I want to do. So, you know, just kept playing. And then there was a band with Michael Max, our bass player. And there were 4 guys, and they were together, and they were kind of jamming and stuff. And they were doing like Thin Lizzy and AC/DC and stuff like that. And
Steve,
then,
is this in New Orleans?
yeah, this is all in New Orleans.
Yep.
And so I got in there, and I was the least experienced, you know, as far as like in that group of people. They had been playing together for a little while. So we got in, and I was having to kind of teach myself rock guitar. How does this derive from what I've been learning? Because I'm reading, you know, I know how to read music, and I'm playing all classical with all hands. And now I got to hold this pick and all. Next thing you know, I got thrust into playing, you know, Thin Lizzy and Alice Cooper and stuff that I grew up on. I loved it, but kind of really had to teach myself. So I got in there, and we were Oz, and we had 2 shows that we played. And then the older guy he was playing most of the lead stuff. He quit. He couldn't take the pressure. That was left. So he left, and then we kind of stayed together, and then we were playing out as Oz for a while. And then we had a manager at that time, was an older guy, and he like copyrighted the name that I had come up with, you know, and trying to like control the band. And we just, you know, we were like in our early 20s, and we're like, you know, we're starting to make a little name for ourselves here. And so I was like, we got to change the name. And so one night we went to see the first Creep Show movie, Stephen King movie.
Mhm.
And there was a scene at the beginning with this little boy in his bedroom, and this bridesmaid skeleton floating in the window looking at him. It's kind of his introduction to like horror and stuff, because he liked all his horror magazines and stuff, and he looks up and sees that, and I'm like, that's our mascot, I swear, that's it, you know. It's like, so I came up with the name Lillian, and I kept thinking Lillian Axe, and I went from the movie theater, drove about a mile away to our singer's house, knocked on his door, said, we're changing the name to Lilian Axe. And he's like, that's cool, I'm good. I was like, no, we are. And he's like, yeah, okay, it's cool. Like, no, don't argue with me. It's Lilian Axe. And that was it. That's how it came up. So we played, you know, with that lineup for maybe about a year or so, or maybe less. And then a couple of guys, you know, realized when things start to get to a point, you either realize that you're in it for good, or, you know, it's not really what you want to stay with. And people have changed. People have different paths in their lives. So Michael and I kept going, reformed the band, and we kind of consider Halloween of '83 like the first true Lilian Axe, because that's when we had the first gig with the new solidified lineup. And then we just played out for everywhere and anywhere for the next 3.5, 4 years. We were, I mean, you know, you look and see national acts coming through venues and playing, you know, they're lucky to get a couple of hundred people here. The scene is so horribly bad now, it seems like. And then back then, we're unsigned, doing covers and throwing in our originals here and there, playing in Wednesday, Thursday night in like Hammond or Lafayette, Louisiana, doing 500-600 people, you know. So at that point, that was the early days. We played everywhere. We went to New York, Midwest, but down in the South, we were like a force to be reckoned with.
Right.
So then we got asked to open up for Rat and Queensryche on the Dancing on the Cover tour. They were coming down here, and it was Rat and Queensryche on one show, and Poison was the opener on another one. So the promoters, I don't know. I heard that the ticket sales were kind of slow or whatever, so they wanted to add us on the bill. So they did. Of course, I don't think we even made any money doing it, but we were pulling in some tickets. So we wound up opening up for that show 5 different cities. And then after the second show, I was at home, and Sunday morning, after the Friday and Saturday shows, I got a call from Marshall Burl, and who was managing Rat.
Yes.
And that's when it started. That's when he said, "Steve, Marshall Burl here. Hey, man, do you want a record deal?" I mean, I'm like, "Yes, sir. I'll have one of those, please." So that's kind of, he's told me about how Robin Crosby loved the band. He'd just seen us those two shows, but he wanted to get involved with us and produce our first album. So, and that's when it started off.
So you said you were growing up and you were learning classical. Like, when did you start getting into rock? Was that later on? You know, and I know we were talking like who influenced you on the rock side of things with guitar?
Okay, so ever since I was just, even as an infant, I always and people ask, because a lot of people seem to think that the melodies I come up with are very lullaby-ish, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know how to describe it. I think I always say I think I was born with what I call a certain kind of melancholy, a congenital sadness. I have this. I'm overly empathetic towards people and stuff. I get sad about things real easy. Not depressed sad, but I feel sorry for people. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I see somebody anywhere, and that always drove me towards liking sadder songs, beautiful songs. And I think that's why the whole thing with the classical melodies and the entire dynamics of classical music, it didn't make me sad. It made me kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but on the inside, it made me just feel like I needed to solve everybody's problems and stuff like that. So musically, I was drawn to lullabies. I was drawn to classical music. And then my dad got my brother. I have a brother. I'm the oldest of 9 kids, but one of my one brother is a year and 3 days younger than I am. So he and I were like twins coming up. We were attached to him, and he and I started listening to the radio, and I think it was the year 72, because that's the year that I remember we had AM radio, right? And so we'd listen to WTIX AM, and that was that year that American Pie by Don McLean was the #1 song. Without You by Harry Nilsson, and so many. As a matter of fact, they had a post on Facebook the other day of the top 100 songs of 72, and I took a picture of it, and I started listening to how many of these songs were so important to me. You know, like Season in the Sun. Remember that one? Terry Jones. All those songs, and they were all just like these beautiful melodies. And I tell people all the time, the 70s was the greatest decade of music to me for the songwriters and stuff. So I started listening to radio, and then Dad bought us the first 2 albums he got us were Bread's Greatest Hits.
Nice.
School's Out by Alice Cooper. So that was
nice.
That was 72. So I remember my dad, we're in the kitchen, and he brings the album School's Out to us. And back then, the vinyl opened up like a desk, right? And inside is the vinyl, and it's wrapped in ladies' white lacy underwear. I'm like 11 years old, and my mom's in there, and we're pulling out, and it's got lacy white underwear. And I'm like, how about that? I didn't even know what it was. I thought it was like a hat or something. So I like take it off, just throw it to the side. And my mom's like, "What did you get?" I'm like,
but what made your dad get that for you? Like, were you into them, or was he into them? Or,
you know, I always thought about that. Like, because I liked Alice Cooper. Okay. So I listened to Alice Cooper, but I must have heard School's Out on the radio or something like that. And he got it. And he probably loved Bread, because, you know, I still to this day, you know, I'd listen to love Bread, man. They were so good. So it's kind of a combination of, hey guys, this is good music that's out right now that I like too, but I want to turn you on to it too. And the great part about it was my first concert, which was a few years after that when we were in high school. My dad and his friend took me and my brother to Alice Cooper, Welcome to My Nightmare. And
awesome.
it was so cool because my dad liked Alice too, right? So we got to tour with Alice a couple of times. I want to say it was around 2007, 8, 9, up in that area. And I got to meet him and stuff. And my dad passed away in 2001. So the sad part about it was that he never got to meet Alice. I thought that would have been so cool, come full circle that,
Sure.
I had a career, because of your support, and you turned me on. The first album you got me, first concert. And here I am on tour with him, golfing with him, and, hanging out with
Yeah.
it would just
Wow.
been great. But
So what would your parents' reaction when you said, I want to be a musician for a career?
The fact of the matter is I still was in college. I still was in school. I still did sports. My grades were great. I did well in school. It was after 2 years of college that I was like, I was burnt, on the whole school thing. And I was
Mhm.
like, let me, I've got this band and we're doing shows, and the same famous quote, I'll go back. Just let me do this. You know what I'm saying? Nobody really does. It's funny because like now later, I'm like, I'll go back to college and get my degree. I'm like, for what?
What'd you go for originally?
You're not gonna believe this, but pre-med.
Oh, okay.
What?
And I didn't want to be a doctor.
Plays.
I talked about maybe being a vet, but I think it's just because I thought I'd be able to play with animals, but I'm like, no. So like my first zoology course, and in college, my first year, we're having to cut open frogs at
Yeah.
Like, I'm doing that. So then I switched I went to Loyola for my second year and was in communications because that was closer to the music business. So,
Mhm.
but they were fine. Now, when we started playing and getting out there, and we were riding around in a van, and we were, we checking in, and four of us in one hotel room eating bologna sandwiches and driving all around, that became a concern to them. And I was always like, don't worry about me. I've got it. You got it. 8 other kids, worry about them. I'm fine, because I was the oldest of 9. So, but my mom and dad, I mean, their support and what they did for our family and their belief in me was just astronomical. So,
Is your mom still around? If I
yeah,
can.
my mom's still alive. She lives in a really nice assisted living place on her own and stuff, but her mind works really well, like she can remember what she wants to remember. Like, remember when I told you to do this when you were 12? And I'm like, and then all of a sudden, she doesn't know where she put her keys 5 minutes ago. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, she's still around. And yeah, she's
What about your brothers and sisters? I don't want to get into, but I mean, I think people would like to
all of us live over close to each other. My brother Craig, who's my youngest brother, he was a drummer for a Black Label Society for about 10 years.
No shit. Wow.
Craig, Craig Neunenmacher. My real last name is Neunenmacher. So
okay.
stayed with that. He didn't change, have an AKA, but they called him Louisiana Lightning. Phenomenal drummer. He and we did a side project called Near Life Experience together, records out that he played on. And he did that with Zach for about 10 years and he got out. And so I think he still plays a little bit, but I mean, he could have gone on and played with anybody, but he just got, he got burnt out, and so, but yeah, the rest of my brothers and sisters are all great. We had one, when I was 4, I had a little sister that passed away when she was a year old, but all the rest of my siblings they're still out here. There's 3 or 4 of them that we hang out together like every week. So
awesome.
No, so
it's funny that you just mentioned Harry Nilsson because I just watched the Harry Nilsson documentary last night.
Oh, did you?
So
Without You is like one of the greatest songs, man.
Oh my gosh,
so phenomenal. Yeah.
So you mentioned Marshall Burrell coming in and saying, "Hey, would you guys like a record deal?" Was Ron in the band at that time? And the reason I asked that is because both of us, we've covered Warrant and Janie Lane, and there's the tale about him apparently coming down and spending some time with you to see if as you were looking for a vocalist. So I just wanted to check that timeline.
Yeah, we were. There was 4 of us: me, Michael Max, Danny King, and Johnny Vines. We were together about 4 years, and like I said, we were immensely popular, and but we were trying to get a record deal. So, I was writing, we were demoing, we were sending stuff out. And then with the thing with Marshall, what happened is Irving Azoff was the president at the time. You guys who know Irving Azoff is.
The Eagles and
Yes. Very, an icon in the industry, right? Problem is, Irving came in and signed us to MCA with Marshall as our manager and left not long after that. So, he signs the band and then he's gone. And next thing you know, the new president, I think, was Al Teller, and never even met him. We crashed kind of like an MCA party one night, and he was like, "Oh, you guys are on the label?" "Yeah, we are." Along with a whole bunch of other bands that you guys are going to put the Spike into.
Right.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's all right. We're going to go up, put the record out. We're going to make our own tracks on this. So, and that's what the deal with Marshall was. He came in kind of as our manager, but to be honest with you, he didn't do anything, and I had heard over the years, from other people that, we were going into these studios and we were spending all this money doing records. And we were just like, when early 20s and you get off the plane, there's a limo waiting for you and you're going to your hotel and you're doing this and that. You trust the people around you. You're like, well, that's my manager. That's that they got my best interest in mind, and you don't know any better. So, and still I kind of feel I just signed my 10th record deal in my life and I feel like I don't know any better. It's like, it really never changes, does it? You know what I'm saying? But that's part of life in any field, any profession. That's just humanity, unfortunately. So, we're involved with Marshall. Robin produces the first album. Back to the Janie Lane thing. Yeah, that is true. Marshall was telling me this was like, I don't know where they were as far as their conversations with the label. Who they signed with? Columbia? Is that
Columbia?
Right?
Yep.
And so, but anyway, Marshall's like, Marshall's always thinking, let me put this super group together, and Janie, I remember picking him up. I think I met him maybe really briefly when we were out there, when I was out there for something. And he goes, "I'm gonna send Janie down," and tells me all about the band. And he he sent me their demo, and I'm like, "Yeah, these good songs." I think it had Heaven and a couple other things on it or whatever. I'm like, "Yeah, good songwriter, different, a little different style wise, but he's very talented. That's great." He goes, "Well, I'm thinking about, what about having him sing for Lillian?" And I'm thinking, well, Marshall probably wasn't telling me the full idea, because I didn't know if the guy was about to sign a dotted line for his own band with Columbia. I wouldn't want to pull him away from that. That wouldn't be fair to his band. And second of all, why would he want to do that? He's the Steve Blaze of Warrant. It's his.
Yeah.
He's the writer. He's the one. He's the quarterback, so to speak. That's how I view myself in this band. I'm the quarterback. I got a great line and running backs, and I got a great defense and everything. But somebody's got to be the guy that's that you can rely on to make sure everything moves forward. And that was Janie for that band. So he came down. We hung out a few days. Got along real good, and it was still kind of in the air. What happened is MCA, they sent all like the top guys to come down and see us in Dallas. And they came back and said, "Look, we just want to sign you." I don't know. It was a really difficult thing, but two of the guys in the band were going through, some issues and weren't taking care of themselves. Like, how you say it nicely, just, partying too much, I guess.
Yep.
Yeah. They have their own demons.
Yep. No, we want this. We don't, and I was like, man, what do I do here? And so, it went through a lot of, just a lot of soul searching, a lot of confiding in other people. And at the end of the day, I went, and Danny King stayed with me. And, and the other two guys that, it was just like, it was my band. I wrote all the material and this and that. So it's like, what do I do here? And I felt like at the time, if we kept on the track we were going, the band wasn't going to last much longer, as it was too many things that, like somebody's going to self-implode here, something. don't want to be a victim of that. I don't want to lose this opportunity. So we wound up going on. The great part about it is the four of us several years later, like in, I don't remember what, mid 2000s, got back together with a bunch of material that never went on to Lillian Axe records. That was really good. It was just not the right. It was just different. And we put out a record called Circle. We called the band Circle of Light. And the four of us original guys put this record out. And not long after that, Johnny, the singer, passed away. So it was almost like God put it in my life to be able to do that, to put some closure to a tough situation.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, and then Michael rejoined Lillian 8 years ago or so, and he's been with me since. So just, you know, a lot of stuff people don't realize that went into that. So that's what happened. So I knew Ron and Rob Stratton and John Sturr they were in a band called Stiff.
Yeah.
And there was a circuit, and there were certain bands that were doing the circuit, like all through the South and the Midwest. And you do 4 or 5 nights at these venues like Cardi's in Houston, which were famous. Everybody played these places, right? And it was like Lilian Axe, Stiff, which was their band, Pantera, Sweet Savage, all these bands that were doing the covers and throwing in your originals in there kind of thing. Everybody trying to get that elusive record deal. Mm-hmm. And that's what happened. I knew those guys. I didn't know them very well, but I always had thought that, you know, I loved Ron's voice, and he was a great front man. And I liked the other guys. They were, you know, they had a good thing going. They just, in my opinion at the time, they had everything except not the songs yet. You know what I'm saying? And so I was like, I think they would fit perfectly with this band. So I reached out to them, and I guess, you know, it's like we knew each other and we respected each other from, you know, seeing each other on the road and stuff. But, you know, it's like, hey, you know, I got this deal with MCA. All you got to do is be in the band and you'll be cutting your first major label record.
So it was pretty organic.
Yeah.
It wasn't anybody else. It was you reaching out. I mean, you guys did that whole thing.
Yes. And so the weird part about it is, at first, because Lillian was a 1-guitar band, right? So I was like, hey, what about you and Rob, the bass player? And Rob was his character. He wasn't like this phenomenal, talented, prodigy bass player in it, but he was solid, and he had a great stage presence, and he was good, and people liked him. So I'm like, if you can play this stuff and be solid with it and play well on stage, you know, kind of make this a package thing, right? So then they brought John Sturr, and I had no intention of being a 2-guitar band. I was like, no, it's never been like that. It's just not the dynamic that we've had. And so he came down just to hang out. And the next thing you know, we did a few shows, but could you play keyboards on a couple of these songs live? And then next thing you know, well, look, on this one song, kind of needs a rhythm guitar. You want to just play guitar in this one song. And next thing you know, I start thinking to myself, man, but it really adds to the fullness. It allows me to be able to do things, because I want to do more things with layers of instruments and stuff. And I'm going to be limited if I'm the only guy. And he was very good. He was solid. He was a great performer. And I'm like, what do you guys think about, let's make this 5 guys? And they were all obviously for it because it was their buddy, you know.
Yeah.
I made the decision, let's go 5. And we did. And it was a great decision. So, and that was it. And right away, like as soon as they came down and we rehearsed and we did a few shows, and then right away, it's like Robin Crosby flew down and we did like 5 days of pre-production in this. We wanted to keep it because at the time I was living in Jackson, Mississippi. And honest to God, I'm not kidding you, man. I couldn't go anywhere. I go to the mall, and one time they asked me to leave the mall because about 50 kids, that's when they would hang out in the food court. They just came around me, and I was talking and signing stuff for them, and, you know, telling them about what we're getting ready to do, this new album. And they asked me to leave the mall because I was making a commotion. So
really,
yeah. So we did, and people started finding out Robin Crosby's coming down and this and that. So we, in all our great wisdom, one of our guys decides, hey, look, I got you guys this room, but it's downtown in the worst part of Jackson, Mississippi. It was like, it's in the hood, man. And it's a dilapidated old building, but a guy knew a guy and they got electricity. So we go in there, and I mean, there's like, like homeless guys and drug heads hanging around outside. I'm like, oh my God, I'm not used to this. This is weird. So Robin comes down, and that's where we did our pre-production. We did like 3 or 4 nights there, just going in there. And to be honest with you, we hardly changed anything from the demos. Now, these are songs we had been playing out live for 3 or 4 years,
I was gonna ask that. Were all the songs on the debut written before you got to the
thinking that too.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
I think one of the later ones was Hard Luck. That might have been one of the latest, because I think I might have, that was after those guys came down. I don't remember off the top of my head, but like Misery Loves Company, probably the first song I ever wrote, like in Lillian, Dream of Lifetime, Nobody Knows. All those songs had been written and demoed, 3, 4 years prior to that. And so, that's what we did. We rehearsed with Robin, made the changes, and we were tight and ready to go. And then we went to Cherokee Studios in Los Angeles and did the first album.
I think you alluded to this, Steve, but the label didn't sign Lillian Axe, correct? They signed you. And am I right in saying that, or
yes? Yes.
Okay.
I mean, we had our subsequent deals with the guys in the band after that. But that's what they signed.
Sure. And
I got the deal.
They signed you, and Ron Taylor wasn't even in the band yet, but they knew that, hey, you had something.
Yeah.
Okay. When you guys recorded, I mean, so you got Marshall Burrell, who was managing a multi-platinum act in Rat, and then here comes Robin Crosby from Rat to produce. Yeah. You got to be thinking, oh my gosh, we
open up for Rat.
Sky's the limit, right?
Yeah, we open up for Rat, but it's when we're not signed.
Right.
That's sensible, right?
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, that we were talking about that. Wayne, our drummer, and I were talking about today. We were just talking about stuff, and we're like, why didn't MCA? Every time I met with them, they touted us as oh, this is going to be great, blah blah blah. You got the manager for Rat now. Why aren't they putting their money into getting us on tour?
Yes.
With a strong live show. We can play with anybody. We can fit with any genre, Why aren't we going out with Rat or any of these bands that are at the point of doing arenas right now? Put the promotional money into that. That's what's breaking a lot of bands, is being out there visibly on good tours in front of a lot of people, and you don't know. I have no idea. I mean, that question's been asked to me 40 million times in the last years.
Sure.
It's like, why didn't this? Why didn't that? I'm like, I have absolutely no idea. But if you, all 10 million of you who have asked me these questions over the years, get together, we might be able to form a petition.
Right. Get to the hand over some paperwork.
Why did they not do this? I'm like, I don't know.
If you knew how many times on this channel regarding your band and many others, we said, what? And I know, like, I swear, I spent 22 years in the military. I try not to, but what the fuck, MCA?
I've heard of it. I know.
A lot. So,
well, that's what I say. If I had a penny for every single time that somebody asked me, why aren't you guys,
right,
top of the food chain, you deserve so much. I'm like, I have no idea. If I had a penny for it every time, it wouldn't be an issue. I'd be,
And I don't, I'm hoping that we get into some stuff that you haven't had to hammer at, because I don't want you to be like, okay, here we go again.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be able to talk about it. I'm very proud of what we've done and what we're doing now. And I take a lot of pride in realizing that sometimes I say something that maybe inspires somebody else, whether music or just in the way I try to live my life and be an inspiration to other people. So I don't mind talking about, just like playing Misery Loves Company. They're like, have you tired of playing that song? I'm like, no. That's a major part of our song and of my life. And I've been playing it for 40 years. And I love it. You know what I'm saying? I'm proud
But
of
at the time when the debut comes out, were you looking at other bands going, "What? Why aren't we getting that kind of
Yeah.
support? Like, what the
Absolutely.
fuck?" Or were there other bands you looked at them and went,
Yeah.
How are these guys big? Like, there has to be a thing going on in your head where you're just like,
Well,
what's the secret here?
I always thought, be patient, and I'm still at that way. I mean, I tell people all the time, man, you've been doing this. You're ever going to retire? No. Why am I retiring? I haven't gotten where I need to go yet. I'm not. I'm not ever going to be there. I mean, something could happen in a year or two. We could have a song that clicks the right way, and the next thing you know, you can't see enough of us. You know what I'm saying? Like, who knows? But that's not why I'm doing it. I'm doing it because this is what I was put on earth to do, and it inspires people, and it's just who we are. You know what I'm saying? It's like,
Okay.
I'll never retire. That I don't need to, but until the day whether I'm not allowed to, or I physically can't do it anymore. No, man, that's I love it. It's what I was put on the planet to do, or one of the things at least. So those types of things, and it's funny because I'm friends with some other bands that I feel share the same type of historic journey, like Saigon Kick.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm friends with Jason, and we talked about that before because I always felt that those guys and the guys in King's X.
Oh yeah, how they weren't huge is beyond me.
And that's the thing, and I know the guys, and we all kind of feel the same way. And then I'm like, we'll start talking. I'm like, but think about how cool it is that we have this kind of this rabid cult following all around the world that will live and die for you.
Yeah.
That just you're not just a middle of the road band. Like, when people that like Lilian Axe, it's not like, I like these guys and these guys. They are rabid for us. Like, favorite band. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, I mean, you may hate us, but if you like us, it's not just like, it's a passing thing.
Yeah.
You get in. And I think that's cool. I like that. I take a lot of pride in that. And I take a lot of responsibility in continuing to make people, get goosebumps when they hear the songs. I mean, it's like, and that, there are a lot of bands that don't want to do new material because financially it's a wreck,
Sure.
but I'm like, man, we got to. That's what we're here to do. The excitement when people, and that's why we got to make it better every album. We got to just take it to the next limit and just be who we are. And then when, you start seeing that and you realize that how much the people that do appreciate what you do and like it, how much it means to them. So it's like, yeah, man, what more can you ask for,
Yeah.
And I appreciate that attitude so much, and I don't want to sound like I'm kissing your ass, but we've said
You
this
will.
before. I probably will sound like it. We've said this before that you seem like a genuinely nice, positive guy from your interactions, just what you see, whether it's online, when I watch interviews, and you did an interview with Metal Mike from the 80s Glam Metal Cast, and he's a good friend of mine, and we've always just said like that seems like a guy who's in it for the right reasons and is a good guy.
I appreciate that. Thank you. I mean, I try, the important thing in life, or, you get frustrated because, like, I have a 15-year-old son. Yep. I've got a daughter that's older. My wife's 15 years younger than me, and I'm like a little kid. But my family and my friends and the people I care about, that's what life's about. And people are always like, well, are you a Christian? I'm like, and I'm absolutely, I'm born again Christian. I am, I have the crosses all over me. Yep. That's but I'm also, I have a lot of things that I'm working on. And one of them is my cussing. Like you were right. Try hard, but right. Man, I tell you what. But my point is that the important thing in life is it's actually, there's so many really difficult things that we have to deal with every day. And people don't realize that. We have to look at each other and say, man, what's that person dealing with? We got to be here to support each other. We have to take care of each other on this planet. I mean, and what better feeling is there when things are going well? Like when people are happy and they're laughing and smiling and they're good, you know, and when you can help somebody to have a better day, you can open a door for somebody at a grocery store and you might have just saved them. You know,
Right.
you just completely made their day different. Being kind, love your family, man. Being a dad to my son is the absolute most important, greatest thing in my entire life. My kid, wife, my family, and I'm like that with my friends too. Like I'll take a bullet for them. You know, I mean, that's those are the things that drive me. You know, we all like to be richer and not worry about things. I guess so. I think the biggest thing, there's some people that, you know, how they look, how much money they have, and what other people think of them, it takes over so badly to the point that they're not happy because they're always worrying about, oh my God, look at this. I got a gray hair today. Oh my God. I'm like, that's not important. You know what I'm saying? It's going to happen to every single person. Every person on this planet is going to get older. You know what? But if you keep the goodness inside of you and keep your soul and your positive outlook ahead of you, that stuff it doesn't mean anything. But what's better than being with your family and your friends and being healthy and taking care of each other and enjoying the things that God's given us, enjoying music, enjoying hanging out and eating and stuff like. Who cares if you got $10 million or you got $100 million? What does it really matter? Your dinner is going to cost the same. You know.
So how do you handle going on the road and being away from your family?
It's hard. I'll be honest with you. It's, you know, before I was married and stuff, you know, it was a lot easier to do.
Yeah.
But since my son was born, it really hard. I think like he was a year old, 2 years old. We went to Europe and we were there for like 3.5 weeks. And it was before FaceTime and everything, and the phones were really good. So I had a laptop and I had to Skype. And for 3.5 weeks, I might get to see him for 30 seconds a night. And it would be like that interrupted picture. And I mean, it was laggy. He was a little baby and it was really tough. But, you know, at the end of the day, you realize, why are you doing this? And you know what? You're doing it for your family. You're doing it to increase the goodness for your friends and your family and those people. You got a whole crew of people that rely on you to go out and play, and to put your record company and your fans, they all want to see you, and you just have to prioritize it, right? Now, this last run that we just came back up, we did 3 weeks of this. It was the second leg of the girls' school Lillian Axe tour. And before I went out, for about a couple of weeks before that, I was having for the first time in my life, anxiety about it. It's like, man, you know, because I coach him in baseball. My son and I are attached at the hip. I love being home. I'm just, it was really going to be hard. He's in school right now. You know, it's going to be tough. So I prayed a lot about it, and we got out on the road, and God just gave me the peace to be able to do all. And we were traveling like 6 hours a day in a car, like 9,000 miles in 21 days. Right. So it was tough, but he got me through it. And, you know, it just, if you prioritize and trust in God to help you out to deal with this, it made it tolerable. Let's put it that way. And then I look at it like this, you know what? They're fine. They're safe. You know, thank God for phones and phone time, you know, because I'm calling home every hour and a half, checking in and make sure everything good, doing his homework with him on the phone. Actually, I coach his baseball team, and we had 4 games that I missed. So my wife had, you know, FaceTime. I got to watch the games.
All right.
And help with my assistant coach during the games while I'm in Seattle, you know, so it was cool. But you just prioritize and realize that these guys out here rely on you. And we got along. We had fun in the guys in the band. We get along great. We have fun together. They're all wonderful human beings. And, you know, you just deal with it, and you thank God that you got the opportunity to do this, because there's a lot of, you know, people playing music that wish they had, you know, get the opportunities that you have. So you can't take it for granted.
I watched the YouTube videos that you guys would put out, and I think it's Wayne that does a lot of those videos, right?
Yeah,
so
that's his deal.
Stuff with you guys in the car, and I'm like, oh, you know, I mean, it's probably a lot different now than it was in 1989. I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. You know, now everybody's driving in cars as opposed, and I think about that too, because you know, most people the cost of buses now is really expensive. It'll just, and you know, when you get, you know, if you're doing arenas or whatever, yeah, then you need to have a bus. But you can do it like this, you know, 3 or 4 guys in a car. Alcatraz had their own vehicle, Girls School had their own vehicle, and you drive. You know, I mean,
you guys race each other?
oh no, as a matter of fact. No, but I drove the bulk of it because even though the guys would help out and offered all the time, I was like, man, if I'm going to be up, I want to see the scenery, and it's kind of like the adrenaline of driving keeps me awake. So like we had a methodology down, man, but we enjoyed it, you know. And then even like some of the shows were fantastic. There were some that were a little weird, like in Boise, Idaho on a Tuesday night. But there's still people out there that have never seen you or, you know, hadn't seen you in 10, 15 years, and being able to meet them and play for them. It's, you know, that's an honor, you know? So we, you know, make the best out of it.
I wanted I don't want to make this about me at all, but you reminded me, you know, you talked about being born again and how that helps you with leaving. So I deployed to Iraq in 2003, and I was gone for 16 months. My daughter was 6 years old. But when I left, I was an alcoholic. Like I was about 260 pounds. I smoked, I drank. And that year that I was gone was the first time in a long time that I'd actually started to think about God and my spiritual life. You know, we would go on convoys and things like that, and then the chaplain would come pray with us. And anyway, when I got home, I got sober in 2004. So I've been sober for 20 years. But what you were talking about just really kind of hit me. Like, you know, I had a child, I had my career, and I was throwing it all away. And you know, sometimes you need a little bit of help, and that higher power is
absolutely.
Yeah. Having a kid changes it all too.
Yeah.
It's just different. As soon as my son was born, I have never had sleep. I have no money. I got no free time. It's like this is a different life altogether now.
But as long as when you sit back and that's like my dad was. I was, like I said, I was the oldest of 9. So my dad
crazy
actually worked multiple jobs, but we all went to the best schools. We never even realized, you know, that we didn't have money because we were happy and because our parents took care of us. They were at all our games and stuff like that. You know, we didn't have tons of stuff at all, but everything we had was like everything to us because they cared about us and we were the priority, you know. And like I said, you guys know, man, there's nothing better than being a father. You know, it really isn't. I mean, it's so funny because I didn't even know what I would do without my son. You know, I mean,
sure.
So, that's a wonderful thing, though, man. I'm glad you guys are appreciate that because when I see and most of the people I do see, they do really care about their kids. But when you hear those stories about the, you know, people that they really don't care and they just worry. It's sad, man. It's really it's a tough thing to have to deal with. But
I'm gonna bring it back, and because I know I don't want to keep you on, but back on that first album. So it's funny you mentioned Saigon Kick because I was just thinking about that. Saigon Kick at least had that huge hit with Love Is on the Way. Right. We were talking about the first album, and I've said that Nobody Knows was your Every Rose Has Its Thorn, you know, your potential #1 single. Was there any talks when the album was being put out? Like, okay, we're going to go, you know, we're going to put out a video for Dream of a Lifetime. And yes, of course, Nobody Knows needs to be a single, and that changed. Or what was the process behind that album and that song? And I'm sure you've covered it before, not getting the attention it deserved.
Well, I mean, it was discussed, that song. As a matter of fact, what else was discussed? I mean, they had thrown a few different ideas out of what was going to be the next single. The problem is there was no next single.
Right.
I mean, it was Dream of a Lifetime, and that was it.
That was it.
Are you kidding me? I mean, didn't take us a brain surgeon to figure out that Nobody Knows could have been a universal smash. But then again, every one of our albums, I think, I don't know, maybe I have a knack for ballady stuff hitting home, because every album had songs. I mean, I can't necessarily say that Ghost of Winter fell into all the right exact
Sure.
mathematics of being a hit,
Valid.
because it was a little different, but it is like probably by far the most revered song in our catalog everywhere. People love Ghost of Winter everywhere, and it's unusual and it's good, but it could have been. You mean you tell me if Bohemian Rhapsody can be a hit, as unusual and unorthodox as that is? Ghost of Winter could have easily been it if they would have had the insight and the knowledge and realized that, you know what makes a hit? First of all, you can pretty much take the crappiest song on the planet, and if you play it on every radio station 5 times a day, it's going to be a hit.
Mm-hmm.
Spend your time, and if it's a good, likable, a piece that happens to get to people's souls, you got something great there. But we had that with Ghost of Winter. Then on Poetic Justice, I mean, we had Dying to Live. We had See You Someday, which could have been massive. And then to go one step further on Psychoschizophrenia, if they would have taken The Day I Met You and put that out at CHR Radio, AOR, or anything, that song could have been the biggest wedding song.
Yes.
I know so many people that got married to it, and I was asked so many times, will you come play that at my wedding? You know, whatever. But that song, with the right promotion, that song would have been immense. Yeah. Just because of the nature of it and the lyrical content, the performance, and what it was all about, and what, that was one of those songs that really, you could be 80 years old or 8 years old, it's gonna hit you somewhere. It was always pathetically bad decisions made by labels on how to handle our music. We've been this weird band out in New Orleans. We weren't from LA or New York, and we were unorthodox. We weren't just like everybody else. We have The Day I Met You on that album. We also have Voices in My Walls and Deep Freeze. So how do you think? It's the same kind of thing like with Extreme, for example,
Yeah.
But they got and they deserved it. I'm not saying they were lucky, but they were fortunate that they had a label that said, you know what? Yeah, this is different from this band, but who cares if it's different? It's still this band. It still is that guitar player and that singer and that vibe. Put it out there, and look what happened. It blew up. And
yeah. And that's one of the things, like you guys, I would say, like you said, Extreme, Bang Tango, Love Hate, they got grouped into this quote unquote hair metal scene. At the time wasn't called that, but really didn't fit the genre like other bands. Yeah. Because you look at those bands and they're not like Poison. They're not Poison. Yeah. Right. And they were grouped in the same category. Just, I don't know, I guess we like to categorize things or something.
What happened? You just exactly what I was going to say. Man likes to categorize. He likes to put things in packages, wrap them up because it's easier to digest.
Yes.
Okay? Everybody wants things to be. That's why we have closets like mine that have 500 things and everything's organized, black shirts, white shirts, because we like organization. We like to not have to go outside the box too much. I'm talking about on the whole.
Yeah.
Like things packaged for us. What kind of band is this? Oh, this is this kind of band. Okay, good. Let's put these guys here. What are these guys? I don't know. They're kind of low. Oh man, I need you got to tell me what they're like. What are these like? What are they? That's why he's like, who do they sound like is the first question. Like, tell me who Lillian Axe sounds like. I have no idea. Right. Now, at least after
Lillian Axe.
When you have, 18 albums, then you kind of sound like Lillian Axe now. But at first, the first album was like, they kind of sound a little like Rat. No, you just know that Robin Crosby's involved in Marshall Burrell. So, and then the second album, it kind of sounds like Def Leppard. No, you're saying that because the guy that mixed it is the same guy that mixed Def Leppard's albums. And then it's like the third album, it kind of sounds like it's like Lilian Axe. It's those kind of melodies now. And then on, and that's how it is. That's just humanity, man. That's just people. You know?
I agree with that.
When after the debut album, when you were getting ready for Love and War, and obviously the debut doesn't do what you're thinking it was going to do. What was the mindset going into Love and War? Was it still like, hey, it's going to happen this time? MCA is going to back us now, or were you leery like, oh geez, here we're going to do another record, and I don't know if we can trust these guys to promote it like they need to?
No, because we always felt like, okay, look, we made a mark here. We didn't, I never was looking at like, the first album's all of a sudden going to go, it's going to go multi-platinum right away. To me, this wasn't a sprint. It was a marathon, right? And it still is. So everything we do is one step up where we were, lots of change, but I still feel like that. But yeah, that was it. I was like, man, I just can't wait to start writing because, all these songs that were on this first record had been there for a while, and I like to write, and so I'm like, man, let me just get into it. And I remember the day I went into the studio with Ron, and had all these ideas, and we demoed them, and I was demoing the drums on a keyboard, like, World Stop Turning, Diana, All's Fair in Love and War. Letters in the Rain was an earlier song that made it over. Actually, Ghost of Winter, I had that demoed before the first album too. It almost made the first album. I'm glad it didn't. But that one too. So I was always optimistic. I was just glad, hey, look, man, we're getting ready to do our second album. I mean,
I get it.
Got us, and as shitty as MCA was, there were some bands that they had on there that didn't get more than one record. So, I kind of try to look at cup half full, so sure. That was like, this is going to be even better. And, once again, I think I even met with Bo Hill, who had done Warrant's album, and a couple of other producers, and they, what's his name? Tony Platt. Tony Platt. Yeah. And Tony had worked with some other bands, and he, a lot of guys that work with us, like Leif Masis and all, these guys were so good. But I really pretty much co-produced or pretty much did the production as far as the arrangements and the songs and the performances and that kind of stuff. But having these at that being young in my career, I also realized that, you got to start learning from these other guys that have been doing it, and they were mainly engineers, like sound, and some of the best sound engineers ever. Right. But so when we're in the studio, it was great because they allowed me to have my producer hat on too, as well. Cause I'm really like in the studio, I am like all work. I have a lot of fun, but it's like, man, you're not getting out of there until I got the best performance you can give me. And it might not be the most perfect, but it might be your best. It might have that energy or that one little weird thing in the way you pronounce it that's so cool or whatever. And you got to have somebody that's going to be able to say, all right, that's the one we're keeping. And I love doing that. I love being in there and arranging it. And we have a blast in the studio, but that's how everything kind of wound up being. Had these great engineers. And then Tony had done, I think, if I'm not mistaken, he had worked with AC/DC and Bonham and a bunch of other, well-respected acts. And we had a blast doing that. And we did Love and War at in the Enterprise in Burbank. And we had the big studio. We were spending, $200,000 plus in that studio. And I'm like, where's all this money going? Don't worry. Here's your per diem. I'm like, okay, it's cool. We're making a record,
Yeah.
But and that was it. Then, then we do that album. I remember listening to the mixes on the bus and go, wow, this thing sounds amazing. Because they got Nigel Green, I think, mixed 5 of the songs. And so you hear in the drums even a little bit of that like Pyromania kind of drum sound, a little bit here and there, So, and that's cool because everything's a derivative of something else. So if it sounds a little bit like, there's nothing that's ever going to not remind you of something else that you've experienced in your life. So I'm like, hey, as long as it's good, at the end of the day, I'm fine. So that was it. And then they put Show a Little Love out, and they're telling us, the head of A&R saying, "Oh, we just got picked up on this station and this station," and then I start really like getting the R&Rs and the Friday Morning Quarterback and all these charting magazines, and I'm studying those freaking things daily, and I'm all the ads coming in and this and that, and I'm starting to learn what P1, P2, and P3 reporting stations are, and and most of the guys in bands are going around just like partying and stuff, and I'm like trying to learn this stuff and realizing all the different silliness involved in it. So, and that was it. They put Show a Little Love out, and then I'm like, guys, there's so much more to this, man. We got to do, I mean, this, and that was it. And then it just, they didn't get us on any good tours. Our first
I
album.
was going to ask about the touring. Like what tours did you do for the first album and the second album?
Crocus. We did a lot of our own. We went out and we played a lot on our own. We did Crocus for 2 months because they were on MCA for one album. Mm-hmm. And on the second album, I can't remember. We did like some festival type stuff here and there and that kind of stuff, but we never got the tour. White Lion gets Cinderella and whatever else, AC/DC and this, and I'm like, because Atlantic put the money out for it, and maybe. Like, why wasn't somebody at MCA working with Marshall and you couldn't put us on a Rat tour? Seriously? Right. I mean, what's the mentality there? You have a piece of this. MCA would to do that unless we got, unless somebody else, because Bon Jovi was opening for him, and maybe Bon Jovi's label paid more or whatever. You don't know those kind of things. Right. Yeah. We're not privy to what's going on with those knuckleheads sitting up in their offices. So,
of course.
Well,
on the second record, what was the decision behind covering My Number? Because that was just an odd cover. We're like,
Stiff used to play that quite frequently.
Yeah. So was it from Stiff that, or was it?
Stiff played it. They had another song. It was called "Conversation Piece," and it wasn't a cover, but it was one of theirs.
Yeah.
Those two songs seemed to, in their set, be like kind of like the best two songs of the night where people got all fired. It was like their little click songs.
Yeah.
Let's try it, see how it goes, whatever. And then My Number being a cover, we just kind of, I had never thought about doing that before, but they kind of thought, hey, let's try it. And I was like, you know what? We can try it out, see how it goes. And then it was like, oh, I can get Vanity to come down here and talk at the beginning of it. Like, and then I'm thinking, and that's all going on around, the past success of like Pretty Woman for Van Halen, what that did for those guys. That was a huge step in their career.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, maybe this will be something that would, blah, blah, blah. And that was it. We played it. And we used to play it out live and stuff like that. Obviously, it was way different than kind of we did whenever we did the I say sleazier things or more suggestive songs. They weren't meant to be sexual. They meant to be tongue in cheek. And I had a few of those, like She Likes It on Top, and I wasn't adverse to doing that at that age because that was one of major things driving 20-year-old guys,
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about it a little bit. So, but we did it on the record, and I think, it was, it had its reason for being there, I never go back and go, I wish I hadn't have done that, because I went back there again. I thought the same way back then. I would make the same decision. I usually make decisions on stuff, and if I was in the same exact boat, I'd do it all over again. Now, knowing what I know now, I might change a few things here and there, but I never feel like when I made a decision, I knew I was making a wrong decision.
Well, I love that album, and
great album.
But again, doesn't pan out. So you guys were dropped after that, correct?
Yeah, and MCA dropped everybody.
Yes.
I remember when we toured with Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper was on MCA for a record. And he told me he had a meeting with Irving Azoff and asked him, how do you deal with all those egos in one room, talking about the Eagles? And something happened. Somebody told, I don't know if it was Irving or somebody told Alice, I hope they never saw him again or whatever. And he got let off the label too as well, man. You know, and Alice Cooper, freaking great guy, legend, unbelievable. You should be like honored to have him on your label. You know what I'm saying? And of course, you don't know all the ins and outs of what goes on with people and stuff like that. But when Elton John was on MCA, did you know that? He was on MCA. I mean, it's like, my God, they could have done stuff for us. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
They could have. And it wasn't like we would have gone anywhere. They could have put us in Russia for 6 weeks and we'd have done it, you know? We were there and we were good and we were tight and we had the songs and we had the material. Can you not see this? But, you know.
So after you guys get dropped, you put out the Out of the Darkness Into the Light compilation. Did you guys have and for the record, I could never find the debut or Love and War at my local record store, but the first time I ever bought a Lillian Axe product was Out of the Darkness Into the Light showed up at my local media play, and I was like, holy shit. So I finally bought a Lillian Axe album. But did you guys have anything to do, any say in it?
Yeah. What happened is right after that, immediately, I start going to, all right, plan B. I have a plan B, C, D, E, and F for everything I do in my life. That's always, you know, I'm always realizing that you never know what's going to happen from moment to moment. So be prepared. So we went and started demoing. And one of the first songs, I think Dying to Live was the first song that I demoed after that. But I had a lot of material. And we just started getting it out to labels. And I don't remember how we got this happened, but Brian McAvoy had a label called Grand Slam. It was a division of IRS, which was under the Capitol umbrella. Mm-hmm. And he had put out White Lion's first album, I think. And he had a band called Cry Wolf. Mm-hmm. I can't remember what else, but he loved Lilian Axe. And so we did a showcase. I think there were like 3 labels there. And the fact of the matter is that I don't think his offer was the biggest money wise or budget wise, but in his drive and his eagerness and the plan that they had and the label and what he said he wanted to do and his belief in us made us sign with them. So we signed to them. And the first thing we wanted to do was get something out there because it was so hard to find our albums. Sure. And so let's get the rights and let's do best of the first 2 albums and so people get a little taste of each. I mean, you could find the first 2 records, but it was difficult. Like if you lived in the South, you know, you could find them everywhere, but they just did such a bad job. And so, so that's what we did. We put Out of the Darkness Into the Light as something to be out there while we were working on the next album. And so then I just, you know, writing and we had a couple of band member changes at the time. And then we went to Sheffield Studios in Baltimore. And that's where we did the next 2 records. We did Psycho there too. And it was beautiful, big, nice. They did a lot of audio video, like movie syncing, you know, audio and video sync for movies. And they were great. It's like, because I play basketball a lot, or I used to a lot. So I'm like, man, y'all got a basketball court there? And like, no. They built one. They put in the parking lot. They built in the concrete a big basketball goal for me so that I could shoot for 3 months out there. And we went there and with Leif Masis, and the studio was great. It was a great time. We did, you know, it was like we were like, I was starting to really open up creatively, like really feel like I was finding my path, you know, and that happened even more so. Like after that album came out, I mean, I'm looking at, we're selling 55,000 units in a week on this album. I mean, I'm looking at SoundScan and I'm like, wow, things are flying. True Believer is just getting all these, makes the top 40 back page of R&R magazine, which is the guys in Pantera go, yeah, we just heard True Believer and Taco Bell. You know, I'm like, they really started off doing it right with True Believer and everything, but we didn't do a video. Why didn't we do a video for True Believer?
Yeah.
Why? Don't know. But we're gonna do a video for the next single. Like, what's it gonna be? Oh, we're gonna do No Matter What, the cover song. I'm like, why are we doing the cover song? Why are we doing, I don't know. God, Living in the Gray, Dying to Live, something. We've got other. It was usually like put out two rockers and then your big ballad.
Yeah.
Someday, but you got it. We still have a shot at getting. Not only can you maybe get if you got a song that's doing that well, you might get some plays on MTV. But there's so many other video outlets. So just go do the video. You don't have to spend a lot of money to do a great video. I mean, just do something out there visual and let people see it. They didn't do it. Right to No Matter What. Here's the video. It's going to be this kind of funny thing. I'm like, not a funny band, I mean, so we're like, okay, maybe it worked for the Beatles. They get a similar video with the, Hard Day's Night or whatever. Yeah, let's go do okay, that's fine. We do the video for that. And it's, we really knocked that version of No Matter What out of the park. It's
yeah,
absolutely.
I love Badfinger. Badfinger is a great, so many good songs. And that's why we wanted to kind of pay homage to them and do that song. And so, and that was it. And it's like, oh my God, here we had all this momentum going up. Why are you making these decisions? Next thing you know, all right, back in the studio. I'm like, well, it's only been a year. I mean, what was it like a year between releases or something?
Yeah,
like
right.
A year? Seriously? How long did it take for Welcome to the Jungle to, Appetite for Destruction to break?
Over a year.
And then they kept moving that thing and they kept on pushing it. They really, IRS and Grant Stump did a great job, man. I mean, they really did a good job. But it was like they had opportunities to do that next thing and they laid back. So we go into Psycho Schizophrenia and I want to start writing again. So they gave me like $6,000 and put together a little mini recording studio, like an 8-track Tascam thing. And I spent months, 10 at night to like 6 in the morning every day out there. And I was living in Kentucky at the time and I had this whole upstairs of this old house and it was my space and I just stayed up there. And in that moment, that was the first time like I had like this epiphany and everything that I was writing was going into this direction with melodies and power and these epic songs that it was like, I don't know where this is coming from, but this is my best. I mean, these things are different. They're original in their makeup, but they're different. It doesn't sound like what I've done before. And it doesn't sound like anything else I know. It's like, but it was like this kind of thing I couldn't describe. And I just started dishing out these songs. And the funny part about it is I wrote 13 songs for Psycho Schizophrenia, and only one of them didn't make the album. It's not like I wrote 50 songs and picked. I wrote those 12 songs on Psycho. I wrote those and one other song. It was called Goodbye Superman. And we didn't put that on the record. I think it might have been because I didn't want to do 13 songs. I was like, supernatural. I mean, superstitious, So, and those songs, and then I was like, yeah, this is something different. This is going to be one that people are going to be talking about for a long time, and right away we went right back into the studio, set it up. I was amazed that they wanted us to get back in there right away. But right when we did that was right when the grunge thing was blowing up, so you had those things, which to me, I was like, I don't care about all that stuff, but everybody else did, because the people like Rolling Stone magazine, who have to have a story and make some stuff up, had to ruin it for everybody by putting rock is dead, rock or whatever, glam is dead, or 80s rock is dead on their cover of Rolling Stone. So all of a sudden, all the sheep out there got to go, oh my gosh, it must really be dead. I can't listen to these bands anymore now, Mom. Please, and you saw it. I mean, it went. And all of a sudden, you know, you got, these 8 to 10 grunge bands, which we all liked and were good bands, but why do we have to ruin a whole genre of music in the public's eye to do that? And that's what happened. And you know what? Here we are right now. And I don't see only maybe one or two of those bands from that genre even around.
Yeah.
And you see all these bands from the 80s and all that are out playing. And, they may not be doing the big numbers anymore, but they're still out playing and they're still here, So that's what happened with Psycho. So right away we go out and then they put us on tour with Accept. And it was like a co-headlining thing. They opened up a couple of shows, but we were like the middle band for the bosun, but it was booked as a co-headline. Now I love Accept. I was listening to Accept before I even had Lillian Axe, right? But why couldn't they, let's take Accept and Lilian Axe and put them on another tour, opening a bigger tour. Do something that's going to help everybody out. And just to do it. So we did that. And we did that for 2.5 months. And then, that was right when all of a sudden we were told that our band and Concrete Blonde were the only bands that IRS was making money off of. And so I guess it just, whatever the finances were at the time, the label went out of business.
Right.
And, and that right at that time, it was like, all right, guys, we need to take a deep breath. So we did go to Europe a couple of times, and we were constantly touring, so it was just time to take a breath. And that's where we did, but I didn't breathe. I kept writing and I formed a new project, Near Life Experience, with my brother. And then the other guys were doing some different things. And that's kind of where things that was like the middle, no, like the, what they call a 7th inning stretch for that first part of our career. Right there.
And you mentioned that there was a change, like you felt like this epiphany. And so I had asked on X, I said, hey, if you were talking to Steve Blaze, what would you want to know? And a lot of people remarked on that, what led to that change. You still hear like the melodies and things are catchy. You still got the great ballads on Psycho Schizophrenia. And I love that album, but it's definitely a different band than Love and War, Poetic Justice, the debut.
It's almost a darker album.
It is, but I can't tell you why. And this is kind of weird, but like if you look at the first album, Waiting in the Dark, Letters in
Sure.
in the Rain, Waiting in the Dark and Hard Luck. And, those were songs that were written at a certain time in my life. So like with everything else, you are a different person and you have a different emotional ways that you express yourself. You have different things that you've seen or witnessed or you feel, or maybe I felt like I wanted to scream more about these things, like to jam them into people's heads more. And you also, when you're in your early 20s, this is all kind of new to you too. And you kind of feel like, well, you know what? Everybody's telling me I got to really do like verse, chorus, solo, chorus out. Right. So you kind of feel like there's a part of you that wants to play the game, so to speak, like much as you can, like at least I can, let me give in a little bit here and then later you just like, you know what? I can't write this song in 2.5 minutes. It's not going to do the song right. I can't say what I have to say. I can't musically or lyrically tell this message that I'm trying to get out. So I'm doing it here. And you know what? Then you see certain things like I bring back to Bohemian Rhapsody. Those guys were told that song's not going to be a hit. Oh my God. Stairway to Heaven, one of the biggest rock songs of all time, So you just don't know. You got to just follow your heart. So it wasn't anything. It's like people ask me all the time, what's your methodology when you write? How do you do it? Because some guys will be like, well, I sit down and I do this, and I can't tell you how I do it. I really wish I could, because I might be able to write a book on it, but I don't know. Like it's everywhere. I hear everything in my head and I have to get it down. My phone is filled with me humming ideas and talking ideas and stuff like that. And it just comes like, there's no methodology to it. Like I don't sit down with a guitar and it'll come up with a riff and then do vocals over it. Sometimes I'll be singing the vocals. I don't even know what it's going over, or the idea. I've written a few songs in my sleep, like No Problem on the last album I wrote in a dream and got up and hummed it and turned it into a song. The Day I Met You, I wrote in like 15 minutes after seeing a movie. There's been a few things that I've had divine inspiration on, and it's not a certain way every time. But I wish it was, because it would be a lot easier to express it. They just come in my head, and I get the guitar and I go sit in the studio, and they evolve. And they evolve once we're like, I always demo everything first. I take a lot of pride in my demos. As a matter of fact, I remember the president of MCA said that my demos were best demos he'd ever heard anybody, because they weren't just like, boom, da, boom, da. I make the demos, I try to put a lot into them. And so when I send the demos out to the band to listen to it, then it's like, give me your input. I want to hear what you have to say. And then we get into the studio. And then once we get into the studio and we're recording the full album, we start throwing stuff all over, because we start experimenting. And, as long as the main arrangement is down, once we get like drums down and we have our skeleton sitting right there, we do so much add-on stuff. This last album, I can tell you there's so much stuff in there you wouldn't even realize until you go back and listen to it. And that's the fun of it, So the whole methodology, I don't know how it comes into my head, but it just does.
Do you write music first and then come up with the lyrics? Or are you one who's just always writing lyrics and then try to place it to the music later?
No, I usually do the music and the melodies, but and that's one of the classical lessons that I learned from classical guitar. It's like the composers would hear like a line, and then they'd hear the counter line with another going behind it. Like, you got your cellos and then your violins, and the violins may be doing 2 or 3 different things. And I kind of do that with the drums and the bass and the guitars and the keys and fills and the melodies and the harmonies and stuff like that. Each one of those is like the old composers, classical composers would have cellos and violin or oboe or whatever. Each one of those instruments, the vocals are an instrument to me. The vocals to me are the most important instrument. So when I usually hear that, like sometimes I just hear the tempo or the beat, or the rhythm and the guitars all, and most of my writing is just in my head. Like I don't have to have a guitar in front of me. I just hear in my head, and then I have to put it on the phone or record it or do something, go in my studio and put it down so I can come back to it. And then the bad part comes is that for the next, like I'm writing this song right now, every night I wake up in the things in my head. I'm grinding my teeth to the beat. It's a curse when you write songs. It's a curse, because until that song is done, you sleep, dream, eat, you're walking around the house, you can't get it out of your head. So that's pretty much music first, but the music, I hear the melodies all the time, and the melodies and the music will most of the time elicit the theme of what I want to talk about. Like on this new album that we have coming out, it's called The 10 Commandments.
Yep.
And it's each song is loosely related to the idea of that commandment. So it's not like, okay, the first song is why you should not kill. The second song is why you should not do it. It's not like that. I'll give you a little bit of a teaser. I haven't even talked about this at all. The first song is called Blood Red Stars, and it's about thou shalt have no gods before me. And it's about the immensity of the universe. And it doesn't, so, it's not like telling you better be nice to God. It's talking about you should respect the immensity of creation and realize that this came from somewhere, so the ideas of the songs are loosely related to each of the commandments, because I thought, and that was divinely inspired, because I was actually on my way to church and I was like, I don't know what came in. I'm like, man, the next record, and the phrase, the 10 Commandments popped into my head. And I was like, I'm on my way to church. I can't get this out of my head. Maybe that's a sign I should do that. Then I started thinking about it more and more. And I'm like, you know what? A lot of people are going to be talking about this stuff. And it gives me, and this is what I'd be writing about anyway, these types of messages and thoughts. So this I think this is going to work. And I have not been inspired to do anything but push forward on that. And it's 10 songs. They're epic, they're big, they're powerful, and they're hard and heavy, but they have these beautiful, lush melodies and harmonies and stuff. So it's gone in the right path. But that's how it works. The ideas will come they all like kind of at the same time. It's not like some guys will write a riff and then they come back later and they'll just let me do a melody over that or whatever. It doesn't work like that. I mean, it's like all at the same time, and I have to discern it and chop it up and make it work.
We talked about Psychoschizophrenia and comes out in 93. Well, then you have 6 years, Fields of Yesterday, unreleased songs comes out. Right. 3 more years, Live in 2002. And then it ends up being 14 years from Psycho to Waters Rising. So what was that off period like? Was Lillian Axe doing, I mean, were you playing the occasional show, or was it like, no, we are done? I know you did Near Life Experience. I actually bought one of those CDs a long time ago. Can you just briefly give us like, hey, what was that period like after Psychoschizophrenia?
Yeah. Well, we kind of took a little bit of a break, and I think one of the reasons why I decided to do it, because I started writing, of course, right away. And I was writing like the song Waters Rising, Fields of Yesterday, Quarantine, Become a Monster, and these songs. And I kind of felt like at that point that the other guys wanted to, and I remember one of the guys that said, we could, try to be more like, write more like Stone Temple Pilots. And I'm like, no, we're not Stone Temple Pilots. We're like, I think because of maybe the frustration that we had with the labels, sure, that a couple of guys kind of felt like, maybe we're not doing, we're not on the, right path, where you start second guessing yourself. And I'm like, no, we're not doing that, man. This isn't, second guess yourself, regardless of the fact that, we haven't been able to achieve what we deserve. You don't stop. You don't change who you are because of that. It has nothing to do with us. It has to do with things that we don't know. But let's just move forward, keep doing what we're doing, and become bigger and better than we ever have been. And stop thinking about it. Just go do what's natural. And that's what kind of led to, I'm getting kind of pushback on this stuff. So I need to be able to create. And so that's when I did Near Life Experience. And I kind of feel like the other guys kind of wanted to do some other things maybe on their own, and that's what we all did. And then we got signed by Pony Canyon in Japan to put out, they wanted a record, but I didn't have a record. And we were kind of not even sure if the band was going to even continue on or get back together, so to speak, or whatever. So we did that and went to Tokyo and played there, and then did a lot of press over there. And then we kind of started doing some teaser shows because the fan base was like, man, you guys, come on, man, get back together, and this, because we never said we were breaking up. Right. We just said we're taking a hiatus, but people knew I was doing something. And I don't know what the other guys were doing at the time. I think like local stuff, but I was the only one that went out there and was doing a full band and putting records out and moving forward. But I wanted to get everything back together, but the response was so good. We did a few shows where we played, Near Life Experience played with Lillian. The first one, we went under the moniker Psychoschizophrenia, opening up for Near Life Experience. Like 750 people packed this club in Dallas. And I was like, that's the first sign right there. It was good for me to see. Because, I mean, in all honesty, I got a little frustrated because it was like, I didn't feel like, I was getting the support for moving forwards. Like, man, stop second guessing everything. It's not, don't worry about, the record company stuff like that.
Right.
We all know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with grunge music. We're dealing with a whole state, a whole social, cultural shift in music and labels and how they do stuff. It was starting to change. It's like, just, you got to believe in what you believe in. And so we got back together again and we decided to do this live album. So the whole time we're kind of teetering on whether or not are we going to get back into this full out again or not. And I'm like starting to realize that, you know what? The things that I want to write, and people ask me that all the time. How do you separate writing for different bands, for Near Life? How do you write for Near Life and any of those songs could cross over to each of the other bands. They really could. It'd be a different vocalist or a different performance, different drummer, but I just write. I don't think about, honestly, Elton John could probably do The Needle in Your Pain. I'm saying a song's a song. So we got to that point where we did the live album and it came out really well. People really liked it a lot.
Got it right there.
It was
right behind me. Got the poster of the ad.
Yeah. And we brought in a mobile unit to mix it and to record it. We mixed it. We made it sound as good as we can, but even in its rawness, there's so much power in it, and the crowd response was great. And people, I've had a lot of people, it's one of my top live albums of all time.
Mm-hmm. I'm one of them.
Great. And I was like, okay, enough of this. I've got all this stuff ready to be recorded. We got an offer from another new label because all these things were on different independent labels.
Right.
But I think they were called Screaming Ferret Records. I can't remember
Great
who the distributor was. And yeah, I know. But the distributor we had all major label distribution, but all these indie labels started to pop out because, the whole major label thing was like, nobody's doing anything with rock and roll right now, hard rock and stuff. And if they are, they're going to butcher you. So it's like, hey, we just need to get it out. That was the whole thing. Get good distribution out. And that's when, we started to get ready for Waters Rising. And at that time, it was when, Ron and Darren decided they didn't want to move forward. They wanted to go do their own thing. So, and plan B, I knew Derek locally. Derek was ominously like strangely, eerily similar to Ron Taylor in his tone of his voice. And I knew Derek for a long time and stuff. So, he kind of slipped right in and we went and did Waters Rising and we toured on that. And ever since then, we've just, keep putting records out and keep touring and keep playing.
You are prolific now. And I like, it's disappointing when bands and we've talked about this before, when bands that you love just stop recording music because you like to think that the musicians that you love making music so much that it doesn't matter. But obviously I don't know all the inner finances of it, but you're hoping that, man, I love music so much. I need to keep making music like you're doing. And there are some other bands, but a lot of bands are just, okay, we're going to tour, we're going to play weekend dates, and we're not going to record anything. And I just feel like that would be a difficult music career to have.
Well, there's no doubt about it. The commercial success, it's to have a lot of commercial success, you got to be here. Everything underneath that is a struggle. Right. When you just like this run we just did, you're thinking about all the expenses going through this. People don't even realize that, hotel rooms, we have 15 people out. So there's like 12 hotel rooms every night, 4 vehicles sucking up gas like crazy. Hertz and Penske and all those car places, they don't want to help you out. They're nickel and diming you for everything they possibly can. If you're paying all this money to go out and travel 9,000 miles, that at the end of the day, you're not making millions on that, but make enough where you can go do it and continue to push your course. Now, there are, even at massive levels, there's still a lot of a lot that goes into that financially too. It's not like it used to be. It's tough out there financially to do everything. So you have to you have to be aware of that, but you've also got to set yourself up outside. Like in my case, I always, I set myself up owning, my business outside of this and being able to set myself up where I can do whatever I need to do at any time. And a lot of musicians are doing that. A lot of people are realizing I got to be entrepreneurial in other ways other than just, if you're relying on being in a rock band, even if we've sold hundreds of thousands of records, I can't live off of that.
Yeah.
I've been screwed out of about $1 million in royalties over my career. Now if I had gotten that, great, but that doesn't deter me. I'm smart enough to know that, what, don't rely on that. Set yourself up and do other things too, to make sure that you can continue to tour and play. And all the money you make on that is just, that's bonus, because it's tough, So, but that's not the reason that we continue to play music. It's because it's in our blood, It's I can't cook, I can't fix a car, I can't dance, I play guitar and write songs. So that's what God put me here to do, and to be inspirational to people if I can, and to be somebody that my family and friends know they can always rely on. So that's my clique. Everybody has it. Everybody's got their strengths. Everybody has their talents. Everybody has that thing. It might be one thing. It might be 100 things that are meaningful and that can inspire other people. And when you click onto that and you respect it, even the bad stuff in life seems to take second to that.
So you guys put out, and I know we're kind of blazing through a lot of stuff, but you put out From Womb to Tomb in 2022. I've been listening to that CD for the last week, and I would tell people it is very epic and grandiose. These are epic, long songs that feel like there's a million moving parts, and I really enjoy it. So one question though that people have asked me when I started, I've been talking about you guys a lot, is some people have asked, like, has Steve ever considered going back to doing the 3 to 4 minute pop rock songs?
Mm-hmm.
And I know you've kind of said, hey, you got to do what's in your heart. Could you just address that for people who, maybe got into the band a long time ago and aren't aware, like, hey, they are still putting music out, which
Right.
I hope part of this video will let people know that, hey, you have from 2007 to 2022, counting box sets. I mean, you guys have put out a ton of stuff.
Yeah.
Here's the weird part about that. And I try to, let's see if I can give another kind of analogy on it. I kind of look at it like this, and I've, and I'm not going to lie. I mean, we can get 95% of people loving what we do and think our latest album is the greatest album we've ever done. And it's those little 5% that wish we would go do the first album again that
Sure.
I spend my time worried about. I'm like, hear this record? Why do you not get that? But then I start to realize that music for people, and I appreciate it, except when people get rude and ugly. But when they're like legitimate, like, man, that album means so much. I realize that that's not just about the music. It's about what that meant to that person at that time in their life.
Yeah.
And I always go, listen, that you don't want me to take something new and bring it back then. You want that to bring you back then.
Right.
Yeah.
If I give you something right now, it's from right now. There's no emotional connection to what 30 years ago. Take what I wrote 30 years ago as your connection to 30 years ago.
Right.
Take what I'm doing now as your connection to today. And what in 20 years from now, you're going to be looking at today going, man, remember those 20 years ago? I wish I was back then again.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Nothing to hold on to. So enjoy that, because that's what I tell people. They're never going to take that away from me. That's history. What we have done back then is part of life, history, forever and ever, for eternity. every year. So if it means that much to you, just be happy you have that. Don't diminish today and tomorrow just because you want something. And I'm like, let's take it. Are you married right now? Yes, I am married. You love your wife, your girlfriend? Yeah, I do very much. What if I told you, no, 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 I need you to go back to that girlfriend that you were with 30 years ago because it makes me feel better because I knew you guys. I knew y'all couple back there, and that makes me. And I'm like, but, and you're gonna be like, what about me, man? What about how I feel and how I am? This is how I feel right now, and I relate it to that. I understand the emotional connection, but me going and writing, I'll never have it in my heart or my head to purposely go write something because I would have to force it. I would have to go forced for me to write another Dream of Lifetime. I'd have to force myself to do it because I don't hear it. Now, if you took any one of those last songs on that last record and broke them down and took away all the multi-guitar layers and the vocal harmonies, I can make them 3-chord songs in a heartbeat. I could do that, but that would sell the song cheap, man. I mean, I hear it different, and I think it's cool that you can have and I appreciate the people that like, man, I love that stuff and I love this stuff now. I love everything in between. Just keep doing it because it's not that. Oh, look what a beautiful dog, man. That's awesome.
That's Charlie.
Oh, that's sweet. But there's no reason why people can't do that because I know, I know in my opinion, but I did create it. So my opinion matters to me that I think that our last album is the greatest album I've ever been a part of. I mean, I listen to that thing. I know what was into it when you start breaking it down and the melodies and the emotions. And when the fact that I listen to it and hair raises up on my arms, I'm more proud of that album than anything I've ever done in my life. And I understand that sometimes people are going to feel differently, but when people actually say, and this has happened too. We've had people that like, I'm not listening to that record. It's not going to be like this and that. And I go, do me a favor, just go listen to it one time. And they come back and apologize to me. I'm sorry. We give them a chance. Now, look, everybody has things they like better than something else. But I was telling them, I was actually talking to my son the other day, and I was like, what's cool? You don't have to nothing has to be better or greater than anything. You can like Italian food, you can like sushi, you can like Greek food, you like this, you can like them all. What if you only could eat one kind of food all day long? Be a pretty boring existence, would it?
Yeah,
right.
So, great thing about music, we can listen to everything. I can listen to Lilian Axe right here, and I go put Blink 182 on. If it moves you, great. There's no competition. The bottom line is you cannot, it's not like the one that has, the biggest biceps is the band you got to listen to from now on. No, you can listen to anything, man. Great. You're going to get something different from everything, just like people. You're going to learn something from this individual. I'm going to learn something from you. I'm going to learn something from you. I'm going to learn something from the guy I just met in the grocery store. I'm going to learn something from my brother, from my wife, my kid. You learn something from everything. Everything is there to be absorbed and appreciated. And if you don't really care about it, don't like it, it's fine. That's just life. I'm not going to say everybody in the world is going to love our music or whatever, but be open and honest and give it a shot, give it a try, man. I've done that a million times. Some of my favorite bands in the world, we all have albums that we like more than others. But the biggest issue that I've ever had is people that like don't want to give it a chance because of their emotional attachment to something 35 years ago. That's great. I'm glad you're attached to that. You'll always be attached to that. It's always going to be, but don't
because I would almost add to that where me and Guru have said this before too, where when you're younger, like I bought that first Lilian Axe album when I was 16, and you have an attachment to music and it hits you in a different way at 16 as to the way it will now that I'm 53. It's not the same thing. Right. But with Womb to Tomb, with that, and I'll say this, it is a different album than the earlier stuff by all means. But there was one thing that was almost like a comfort food was your guitar tone and the way that you play on that. It's a distinct sound that you have as Steve Blais playing guitar. So I'm listening to this going, yeah, this is the same guy that played the solo on Show a Little Love.
Right.
So you still have that connection to it
Right.
years later. You've done something completely different, but yet that tone is still there. It's like, again, it's a comfort. You're like, oh yeah, this sound takes me back to when I was 16, though the song is completely different.
And and one thing too as well is like, and this is another thing that a lot of bands don't realize. And I'm not saying this because I am the songwriter, but the most important element of a band to me is the songwriter. Because look, let's face it, there's a million great guitar players and singers and drummers and that guys that are just fantastic talents everywhere. But what people are going to remember is going to be the song. You can be the greatest guitar player in the world, but if I don't have anything to listen to you on, it's just you're a great guitar player. But what really hits people it's the songs and the songwriting. So when you see a band that completely that has the same songwriter all together, there are going to be elements that are going to always be consistent on it. There are same elements in From Moon Tomb than the first album. The melodies, the structural, even if it's down to just, some of the guitar, the tones or whatever, but the harmonies and the melody, the melodic sense and the chord changes, if you listen to it long enough, you'll be like, yeah, I get it. That's that. And it's also hard, after so many records and just growing up and learning and me being open to so many other things, I can't go back and write, the same exact stuff. It might in the course of my veins still be there. It's still me writing it, but I've learned a lot since.
Yeah, your experience comes through. Yeah.
Put different melodic patterns together and different ideas that I want to sing about, and just ways I want to express it. So it can't be. I would be selling the world short and selling my friends and fans short if I went back to do something that just wasn't honestly who I am now.
Well, I think you're right, that because here's, unfortunately, and it kind of has to do with the ease of which we listen to music now. Unfortunately, like, I still buy all the Lilian Axe albums, but one thing I do that I don't like is sometimes I'll buy an album, I'll play it once, and then you put it away and you go, yeah, that was nice. But you reminded me that sometimes you need to listen to something. Even some of your favorite albums in history didn't grab you on the first listen. Right. You needed 4 or 5 listens. So I've been listening to From Womb to Tomb all week. And even though I bought the CD when it first came out, admittedly, I kind of listened to it and put it away. And so now I've been like, Breathe. No Problem could be a massive hit. Feelings of Absent. Did your kid write the lyrics or write some of the lyrics for that?
No, the intro to that song that goes bow down 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 down. When he was younger, maybe 6, 7, 8 years old, he was playing on his PlayStation with this video game, and you like hit certain colored buttons and it would make a sound, and he created that riff.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I was like, holy, do that again. And I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know, Dad, I'm just hitting buttons. And I'm like, wait a minute. I recorded it. And like 5, 6 years later, I'm like, man, and I'm like, I gave him writer's credit on it. Hey, that's your buddy. I video. I don't know if you guys saw the video or not.
Yes.
We have a video for that, No Problem. Yep. And I Am Beyond. And he's in there. We had it's the videos, it's kind of like the Illuminati. So the 5 of us in the band, we have all these masks, and the whole idea is about corruption of power. And so in the video, the 5 of us in the band are the Illuminati, and we're meeting at this special table, and the woman comes in and gives us poison, and we think it's like the elixir of life, like, I don't know, blood of unborn children or whatever. But we're there to celebrate the Illuminati and the power of we run the world or whatever. And she poisons us. But Wayne couldn't make it at the last minute. I can't remember what it was. If he's sick or his vehicle broke down on the way in. So my son, who's now 6 foot, he stood in. He took Wayne's place in the video. So that's him sitting table with the mask on. So
That's funny.
not only got to be in the video, but he got to get writer's credit for the riff. So it was cool.
So when are we looking at, and I know you're just in the beginning, but the 10 Commandments, when are we hoping to see that released?
I would like to see summertime.
Okay.
So we start like beginning of January. So we're already booked to do. We're gonna go in and we're gonna be ambitious. We're gonna do like 3 tracks, and the important thing is getting, like I said, the skeleton down. Get the bass and drums down solid. The arrangement's good, because all the rest of it's like, just give me the colors and the paintbrushes. Come on, guys, let's go in, man. Let's put some over here. And then we start building this thing. On From Womb to Tomb, that is like the best example I can give you of our highest creativity. On that album, there's thunder, lightning, and these are real sounds of real maggots, flies, timpani, orchestra. There's 3 songs that have choirs on there with 80 voices. It's Brent and me overdubbing like 5 to 7 different harmonies, different mixes. It's an 80-part choir. If you listen to that, it sounds like we got we call ourselves the Moron Tabernacle Choir. It's like it sounds like we went and hired a choir to sing this stuff up. But we took our time and we just built and built. There's Hammond B3 in this thing. There's a lot of piano. There's tons of cellos and big pads and stuff like that. Sound effects of thunder and lightning and rain and just all through that thing. And I've got people that are like, man, I've listened to this album 10 times already, and I just heard you this, and I just heard that. And I'm like, that's kind of cool to me. That's why I tell you, sit, you got to listen to it when you can. I know it's hard to find any moment, much less an hour, where you can be and have some serenity and just sit there and listen and not be obstructed by life, you know. But when you can and listen to it, you'll start hearing little things here and there. And the guys in the band just blew it out of the park, man. I mean, they just killed it. So we're going to take that same mentality. We're in the same studio, same engineer, same mixer, same Ted Jensen did the mastering on it. And Ted Jensen has done Prince, Madonna. He did Hotel California by the Eagles. If you look up Ted Jensen's mastering, it's like a who's who of every great record that was ever created. And he mastered all those. So he's going to do it again. And, you know, it's like, just like from Poetic into Psycho, same studio, same engineer, same methodology, and but the only difference is, you know, that last record was kind of a concept thing. We have interludes and we have all kinds of things. This is 10 smacking songs, boom, 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 one after the other, and they're big and they're epic and they're really powerful. So I can't wait to get in there, to be honest with you.
Do you write for other artists?
My number on that record. Why didn't you do my number? You know, so.
Hey, there we have some balloons. All right. Hey, do you write for other artists, and have you ever got or thought about going into producing other artists?
I produced a couple of local guys, different kinds of music. Jason Turner's a guy down here. He's kind of like, I don't know, maybe like a Bob Dylan with a little country, and, you know, a different kind of thing that what I'm used to.
Right.
There's a band called Warlord. They're a metal band out of, I just wrote the melody and the lyrics for one of their songs on their new record. There's a band called Waist Down Rebels that put a record out. Rick Ayers is a guitar player. It's his project, but he hired me to write the lyrics and melodies and do the lead vocals on it. So I did that. That album came out last year, and the second one's about to come out. But I don't play with any of these bands. I just did the lead vocals and stuff. And it's funny because I did lead vocals on a Metallica tribute band like 25 years ago. I'm like, you know, most people, I've done some guitar things like, what's it called? Low Rock City, I think. It's a Kiss tribute band that just came out.
Oh, okay.
Kiss tribute album with different players. I've done some stuff like that, but It's kind of funny because, you know, a lot of people are like, man, you should be writing for other people, producing them, playing guitar, doing this and that. And I don't really put myself out there. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
In the past, I had auditioned for a few different bands that had approached me to play with them. Warrant was one of them. Lita Ford, Sebastian Bach, and Wasp. And
Oh,
it all approached, and for one way or the other, it didn't work out, timing or just something that, you know, wasn't right for me at that time or for them. You know what I'm saying? It was just
this is in later years, right? Not before Lillian Axe.
no, not before. But now, remember the band Angel?
Yeah,
Yep.
you played with them for a while.
I
Yeah.
played
with
with
them.
Angel for a while.
Yep.
You know Jim Dandy from Black Oak, Arkansas. I played on his solo record before I was even Steve Blaze. I was Steve the Axe Nunemacher. But that was right before I became Steve Blaze. And so I was like 20, 21 or something. But his solo album came out and we had opened up for him. And he asked me if I would join his band and do his record. I didn't join the band, but I flew to Corpus to do that album. It's called Ready as Hell. And so, you know, I'd never like put myself out there to go. I mean, I would do, you know, they're bands that I would go play guitar for, you know, in a heartbeat, you know, Alice Cooper bands, something like that. I wouldn't do it just for a paycheck. I'd do it for, you know, somebody that I really wanted to do it for. But I've never, you know, there are guys out there put themselves out for, you know, guitar for hire or whatever and stuff.
Yeah.
I never did it because I've always been, and I think that might be one reason why I haven't been approached a lot, because people know how dedicated I am to Lillian and, you know, and that scenario. But yeah, I've always thought about that. You know, if the right situation comes up, there's plenty of me to spread out, you know, spread myself thin. And I would, you know, love to write or produce for other bands that, you know, that I really felt right about. I really wouldn't do, you know, something that it just didn't feel right for me. You know what I'm saying?
Sure. Now, I know you have like the Blaze guitar method.
Yeah.
That's something that I've seen online. How did that get started?
Well, I used to teach a long time ago. I had a lot of students, and it was back in the days, you know, early days. So it was like I'd go to their house, teach them for an hour and stuff like that. And it became really tedious just driving around and stuff. And I loved the kids that I was teaching. Some of them are still out there playing and everything today. And, you know, and I'm just so proud of them. But I think I have a unique way of how I approach guitar. And let me try this out. What if I do some videos, right? Sure. And in the video, instead of being like just harping on scales and blah, blah, blah over and over again, do a little bit of each, like teach some, you know, it's basically designed for like beginning to intermediate, but even an advanced player, there's some that have gotten these or learning from it. So I'll teach about some chords and some scales and stuff, but then I teach about my method on how to understand the guitar deck and how everything fits together, and then give them ways to not only understand why you're doing this, but to start kind of looking outside of the box, thinking about melodies. But then I'll talk about songwriting in it. Then I'll teach them a little piece of like a Lillian song that they'll, you know, want to know and stuff. So it's like 7 different things in this lesson. It lasts about 45 minutes long. But I did 8 sessions with it. And then I kind of stopped because of time. And the people that have gotten it have really enjoyed it, you know, because it's kind of tough to be a guitar teacher, because a lot of the stuff that you have in your head it's just innate, and it's not necessarily the easiest thing to relate to somebody, because you can relate it to them, but if they don't understand it yet, or it's not, you know, they can't play it the way you can when you're telling them, they're frustrated, you know. So kind of take it slow and methodically. And then I have another thing called Breaking the Code. I think I did 2 songs, but I think I did Show a Little Love and True Believer, if I'm not mistaken. But I showed every single guitar part, the solo, note for note, all the fills and all the add-ons and the overdubs and everything for each of the songs, like note for note on there. So
And should people go to, is that at lilianaxe.com, or if people are interested in the lessons, or
Yeah,
is that-
LillianAxe.com is the best way to go. It has all the links to different things. But on Facebook, on my Steve Blaze page,
Yep.
I get a lot of IMs. I am me. I respond back to everybody.
Sure.
Let me say this. Speaking of social media, who runs the official Lilian Axe account on X, formerly known as Twitter?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay. Because last year I got into a spat with someone. It was last Thanksgiving, and someone had something up there where it was like, "What would be your ultimate concert to see?" And I said, Van Halen's my favorite band. Van Halen with David Lee Roth, and I put Lilian Axe with Ron Taylor. And whoever does the account said he's never coming back. And I said, that's never going to happen. As I said, it's never going to happen. And I go, well, neither will Van Halen play again, because unfortunately we lost Eddie Van Halen. And then it got really I got kind of a little nasty. Like all of a sudden, the guy was like, "It's not happening. He left the band. Don't think." I was like, "Whoa!" I'm just saying.
No, it's kind of
see. It's not going to happen.
I would never not be honest about stuff, but we've gotten that over the years. A lot of people loved Ron. Ron was a great, great front man, and he was a part of these records that mean a lot to people emotionally. But I mean, I had this conversation with Jason from Saigon Kick. They went through the same thing with Matt Kramer going and stuff, and it's like, man, we can't get a break. I mean, we're doing, and I'm like, dude, I can tell you as a Saigon Kick fan that I love all your stuff. I'm your fan no matter what, So, but we start talking about the emotional attachment that some people, because some people are cool about it and like, yeah, man, I love those albums and amazing, and I dig that. But when you start being like, you're not even going to give the new stuff even a chance to listen to, that is like, what can I say other than, as long as you're not being rude and and being ugly, then so be it. But you get a knucklehead here and there, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, man. They didn't get fired.
Yeah,
they left because they wanted to do something else. And with all due respect, anybody that happens in bands and life and relationships and every kind of business, people are going to have changes of what they want to do with their life. I said, but you know what? I've done 10 albums since then, and I'm still doing it. And I have great singers, and I've had great band members, and most of the fans still absolutely love what we're doing. So just be nice and go back and listen to Love and War, man.
Yeah, that was the thing. Metal Mike even messaged me. He's like, "What did you do to piss off Lilian Axe?" I go, "I don't know what happened. I don't know what's going on here."
About it, it's just you start at first, it bugs you, and then you start to just let it understand where it's coming from, because it's not just us. I mean, think about all the bands and look at Brian Johnson from AC/DC. Start Back in Black, one of the biggest albums of all time, and he's still going to get people in insult him and talk about Bond. Why can't you just like both of them? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, or just stop. Let it go, move on.
Would you have rathered AC/DC just call it a day when Bon Scott passed away?
Yeah.
How about be thankful that they got another singer and still continued to do great music,
Exactly.
Well, I'm not going anywhere.
I have to ask you this, since and we've had you for over 2 hours, and thank you beyond thank you for all the time. The channel is called Hair Metal Guru, and I've said every time I've talked about you guys, I've said, look, we talk about so many bands. I've never felt that Lilian Axe fit. You guys weren't like the party rock sex band. So I never felt like you were a hair metal band. But I just would like to know, what are your thoughts on the term? Do you not like being associated with it? Or are you like a lot of people who have just, hey, you know what? We've come to it. There's Hair Nation. We've come to accept the term. What do you think about it?
Well, I kind of feel it doesn't bother me at all, because like we talked about earlier, I mean, people want to have a box. They want to have, when somebody's trying to set you up with a date, what's she like? Who does she look like? You know, it's like they don't go like, tell me about her personality. Like, well, who she look like? That's it's like the easy way out to figure something out. So it doesn't bother me. I mean, hey, look, back in the early days, we were influenced by all the bands that were looking. I ain't gonna lie and tell you that we didn't like make sure your hair looks good. I mean, we all had long hair, and we all, I had long hair because I looked really horrible with short hair, I'm sure. But that's just the way I chose. But it wasn't because I was in a band. My hair was long before I was in a band. But that's how people. It's only when it starts to be looked at and treated irrespectfully that
Right.
it's aggravating. Like you call it what you want. It doesn't matter. Because over the years, dude, we have gone from glam metal, hair metal, then we were hard rock,
Mhm.
power metal, and most recently with From Womb to Tomb, we are in prog metal circles now. You know, that's like calling Rush prog metal. Rush isn't prog metal. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Anytime you do something that's outside the 3-chord box, all of a sudden you're prog rock or you're,
Yeah.
I'm like, you can't control that, so why worry about it? Just do what you got to do. But it doesn't bother me. Like some of these bands are, oh man, we were never like that. Yeah, you are. But that doesn't mean your music was like that or bad. It's not a derogatory term. It's just you were part of that group because you happened to come out at that time. You were in that group and you looked good.
Right.
That's all there is to it. So, I don't think it's gonna keep me up at night ever worrying about all the hair metal band.
Sure. Brian, was there anything that you were dying to ask as we
Oh
wrap
man,
it up?
left because we kind of covered a lot of stuff today.
Yeah.
I remember when I was in high school, saw in a metal magazine, you were in an ad for Ibanez guitars. And I own 3 of the basses myself. And I always wondered, like, what is your go-to axe right now? Like, what is the one you pick up and you're like, yeah.
Okay, right now, it's funny because I have about 45 guitars right now. And the one that, like on this past tour, I have 2 of these new Charvel models. It's like black and pink, and one other one's black and yellow. You can see pictures from the last tour.
Mm-hmm.
I went through those because I always liked Charvels, like the original white Charvel from Dream of a Lifetime. I still have that. I had it completely redone recently. Still the same pickups, everything, but I had new Floyd Rose, new heads, new frets, everything done. I've had people offer me 40 grand for the guitar before, and I would never sell it. That's my iconic white Charvel. I have a new company down here called Bayou Guitars. Built me, called it a Bayou Blaze, which you'll see on the last tour I opened up with it. It's like this company builds guitars that are all made from woods here in Louisiana. So all the wood is indigenous to the state, and beautiful guitars. They just gave me that. I just took that out on tour. I used Guilford Guitars, which is a guy I was involved with several years ago out of the Midwest. I have like 4 of his guitars. I use maybe 5 or 6 a night, sometimes in a full show. Jeff Richard from Carondelet pickups. I have my own series of guitar pickups too. The Blaze model pickups. It's a neck. It's a Love and War combo. I think the War is in the bridge and the Love is in the neck. But you can get them both, but they're like high output, amazing. He hand winds his own pickups, and he's well known for doing this. He built me one of his guitars from scratch. It's like a Strat Model C foam. It's beautiful. I play that a lot. I have Les Pauls, Explorers. I have some Washburn hollow bodies. Gosh, I have some couple of custom guitars. I have a company called God, what were they called? Strictly 7. They were a 7-string guitar company. They built me a bunch of nice guitars for years, but they unfortunately went out of business. But that's my main thing. And I have a Wolfgang that I go to a lot too as well. So pretty much my Charvels, my Guilfords, and my now the Blaze, the Bayou Blaze. I use that. So I'm getting ready to do this thing where I wanted to do it for years, and this photographer friend of mine, Todd Schmidt, who's one of my closest friends that did all our videos. He's a great photographer. We're going to take all of my guitars, clear out my living room, and do one picture with like all of my guitars and me on the couch, just spread out everywhere. So snapshot in time. So
does your wife get pissed when you buy a new guitar like mine when I buy a new bass?
I got to tell you, man, I'm fortunate. I'm a shopaholic. I love shopping. And when I tell you, when we go somewhere, and it doesn't have to be any big stuff, little things, but I buy my son and my wife stuff constantly. So she appreciates that. She loves to shop too, especially online, but doesn't get bent out of shape about me. Pretty much doesn't get bent out of shape with me much about anything.
That's nice.
Brian, you're not so fortunate on the other hand.
Well, the last one, because the last two basses I got, one I tried to hide from my wife a month later. She's like, how's the new guitar? I'm like, all right, you found that. Oh, no,
you knew about it?
And this one right here, my Fender Jazz, I said, let me just tell her. And she was like, why do you keep buying these things? It's an addiction. I can't help myself.
I am fortunate in one aspect is that most of the time I don't have to buy them. Because, I'll be involved with a company and they'll do it. But I did buy one of those recently, and it wasn't bad. It was like $1,800. It was the Fender Acoustic guitar. It's the acoustic. It's phenomenal. I did buy that one. But Brent and I, our singer Brent Graham, he and I have an acoustic duo called Blaze and Graham, and we play around here in this area locally a lot, and it's all acoustic stuff. It's just acoustic guitars, and we sing harmonies, and he plays the cajon for some rhythm, and we go to our towers and we do. I mean, it's funny, we be playing in the hard rock in a theater with all these screaming metalheads, and then we come back and we're playing Bread and Simon and Garfunkel and the Rolling Stones, but it's all acoustic 60s, 70s, and 80s stuff. Everything from like David Bowie and Gordon Lightfoot to Billy Idol, all acoustic. And it's so much friggin' fun, dude. And I bought the Acoustasonic for that. And that thing sounds amazing. Has to play one. It's really cool. But that's been the last guitar purchase. I'm guitared out for a little bit right now.
Until you find another one.
Until tomorrow.
Is there going to be any touring? And I'm sure that the days of long tours are probably over. But are you guys hoping to do a couple 2-week, 3-week runs here and there when the next album comes out?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We're already talking about going back to Europe, but we're going to wait till the record's out before we do anything like this year. We did some spot stuff, but we did 2-3 week runs. And the first one, and they were both with Girl School, Lillian and Alcatraz. And the first one was in March and April, and we did like 16 cities on the East Coast up into Canada. So we covered all major cities. And the one we just got back from, we did the same thing on the West Coast. And then, so we covered like 30 something major cities. Like this last run, it was all like Dallas, Boise, Vancouver, Seattle, San Francisco, LA, Portland, all major cities, Vegas, Phoenix, Salt Lake City. So this year we were able to hit like 32 major cities. Right. And these places we hadn't been to in a long time. So going out for like 3-4 months at a time, unless it's a major thing, nobody really does that at all anyway. Even major things are going out for like a month at a time. Right. So, and I think there's some sensibility in that, because not just on the financial level, but on the human side, on spiritual level, going out and doing that. We did 21 days, 9,000 miles, averages out to 420 miles in a car a day. If you can't handle, you got to have your head together to be able to do that. You really do. And we did. So, but most people don't really have the wherewithal to do that, and keep your head on straight. So you need to be sensible about how long you're gone and putting yourself through that daily rigor every day. So we keep it like that. We don't like to go out and do anything any more than 3 weeks at a time. Anyway.
Sure.
Makes sense.
Is there anything else that you wanted to promote before because we got to the album, we got to your guitar methods. Is there anything else going on that we should know about?
Yes, I'll show you right now. Steve Blaze beard oil.
No shit.
Yeah. Better start growing some facial hair.
You're gonna have to get somebody. There you go. Hey man, this stuff is it's amber, leather, and smoke.
How did that get started? I gotta know.
Yeah, I was about to ask that.
My buddy and he has a company called Brothers of Blaze. His company is called Wolves of Odin. He is a singer and he looks like a Viking and he does all this great beard oil and stuff like that. And he's out of in Fort Worth. Look up Wolves of Odin. And we started talking and I grew actually like 2 years ago, dude, my beard was like huge. I don't know if you see it. Well, it was huge. It was like, and of course the female contingent was like, that's terrible looking. You look terrible. You need to shave. It's like, I'm like, just listen to my music. Don't worry about what my facial hair looks like, So I said, man, I need some good beard oil. He goes, man, let's do something together and make one, So I told him the fragrances that I liked and he built and he made it and we sell that. I sell my lyric sheets. I've been doing this for a while. I handwrite whatever song you like in gold or silver on like thick black, what do they call it, cardstock or paper, and handwrite the lyrics and sign it and send it to people. And I've done hundreds of them. Like, hey man, Ghost of Winter, man, that's my song. So, and they're relatively pretty cheap. I sell them for like $50 a sheet, and people like some guys will be like 6 or 7 songs, and I write them and mail them to them, and they frame them and they look great because they're black with the yellow and gold on top of it.
Cool.
So we've got visionmerch.com has all of our shirts there. We do our merch there. If you go to lilianaxe.com, all the lessons and all that stuff is on there. Yep. So, I'm always on my Steve Blaze. We have Lilian Axe Forever on Facebook and the Lilian Axe official website too. So we stay pretty active on those things. I'm on mine all the time. I like to go and say hi to everybody all the time on there. So,
I've noticed, and I think that's awesome that you interact with the fans. You don't seem like an unapproachable, I mean, geez, just sitting here talking, I don't feel like we're doing an interview anymore. I just feel like a couple guys.
No, man, I agree with you. It's kind of funny because my son tells me that all the time. A long time ago, he when he was little, he was like, Dad, how come everywhere we go, people know you? And I told him, I said, well, I play in a band and, we're from here and, we've been making music for a while and, people know me from the band. And then he goes, you know what? He says, and this is like why my kid's so smart, because he was like 7 or 8. He goes, do you realize that every time when you meet those people, they're always happy and smiling and they didn't even know that they like your music and they get to meet you out there. You have to realize what that does for them. And I go, man, how old are you? That's such a perfect way. I love meeting the people. I mean, I don't look at it like, I'm fans of a lot of stuff, but use the term fan. I just like, hey man, you like the music. You appreciate what we do. That's great. I'm the same way with, everybody has, like I said, everybody's got their things that they do that affect other people in good ways. And so I'm blessed that I can make music like that. So when we go out, like I was out, and the other day and like 4 different times somebody came up and said hi. And my wife and son are like, it's cool. That's great. They don't get like, oh, come on. They're like, they appreciate the fact that people appreciate, what we do to the point that they just want to come say hi and that's such a good thing, and it's teaching him how to be appreciative of other people. And like, what the tiniest thing that you might do, how it can affect just me writing a song for somebody, I mean, over the years, how many times have I heard this song kept me from hurting myself? This song got me through rough times. And I'm like, wow, that's when I realized, like, you know what, I was put here to do that, because if music, and it does, can heal people and get them through. I mean, I've had some seriously strange, unusual, and not strange, but heartbreaking things that people have told me about, I mean, I've been on the phone with fans that were on their deathbeds. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Realizing, and that's happened to me several times. I've gone to the hospital to meet fans that were on their deathbeds. And it's like, man, Steve, you can't just just take this for granted, man. You hope that somebody does that for you one day when you need something like that, So every little moment, and I'm saying all this, getting back to you talking about the fact that I seem like I like to meet the fans and stuff. And I do, because I mean, I learn from them. Like, what do you like? What's your favorite, this and that? And they'll tell you, and what they like about things. And then you wind up kind of like, hey man, we had this great moment. We're friends now. Okay. Might not ever see you again, but you know where to find me, and hope you like the next album, and I'll always be around there in the music for you, so, and that's cool stuff, man, and so I'm not one of those guys that, like, you'll hear sometimes knuckleheads saying stuff like, I don't owe it to anybody to do this. Yeah, you don't owe it to anybody, but it should be something that is inspirational and drives you to be better at what you do. And I like that every time. I'm not like, I just want to make every record best, not just necessarily for us, because we're going to do the best that we possibly can, but because I want people to just be moved. You know what I'm saying? I want them to go, oh my God. And I've heard that, like, from Womb to Tomb was like, I didn't think y'all could do a better record than this, but man, this, and that's like, wow, that feels really good, because I don't want to disappoint people. I want them to go, he did it again. Thank you. This is more stuff for me to draw off of and feel good about.
Right. Well, I think I put it in the last Lillian video that we did. But when I was in college and I was making mix tapes or mix CDs for people, and I made one for a friend of mine. Well, a couple weeks ago.
Remember that?
A couple weeks ago, she texted me and
right?
She's like, I just found this and I want, this is so you. And I had all these songs on the CD, but the only song I wrote all the lyrics to was Dying to Live. And I said, this is such an important song for me. And
that was your favorite one, right? Isn't
yes,
that?
Yes. And, I've had, like I told you, I had alcohol issues, had a lot of, problems back in the day. And so I just wanted to reiterate to me that your music meant so much to me over the years. And we were talking before you came on, like, to the us from 1989 to actually think that we were going to be able to sit here and talk with Steve Rose from Lilian Axe is just cool, amazing. And sometimes they say don't meet your heroes, you're going to be disappointed, but to meet you and sit here and chat for 2.5 hours has been unbelievable.
Well, thank you, man.
Totally agree with that.
We're friends now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I hope to, if there's ever, and the channel's doing pretty good. It's getting close to 3,500. So if there's ever anything that I can promote, you're welcome to come on anytime. And I just really appreciate the time that you took today. So
well, you got my number, and pass it on to Brian too, so he has it.
Nice.
You guys, anytime you want to call and chat, just talk about stuff, please do. And then let's I'll keep you posted. Maybe we can do something when we're in the studio recording, do a quick little snippet while we're in there and let people see what's going on while we're on the album and stuff.
That would be awesome.
Anytime y'all want to have me, man, I'd be more than happy. It's been a pleasure.
I got to put in my 2 cents. I've been a fan. I've liked your music since 1988. And this is just what an honor to talk to you. This was great. And thank you for being on. This is awesome.
No, my pleasure, guys. So keep doing what you're doing, man, because you guys are flying the flag and doing a great job. I mean, I'm like listening and go, man, these guys, that's what I said. It's like what really was like the first thing I heard, you guys, did you do something about the ballads, right? It was about the ballads that should have been, right?
That was him.
I did a ballad episode.
Yeah.
About my fourth or fifth video when I was still a rookie, I ranked the Lillian Axe albums.
Yes, I saw that one too. And then when I saw this 100th episode,
Yeah.
I was telling that. As a matter of fact, on this tour, we listened to the whole thing in the car, the whole band, while we were driving.
Oh no
Yeah.
way!
Yeah, because they hadn't. A couple of them, one of them had heard it, and the other ones hadn't. I said, "And listen to this," and they were like, "Man, you gotta go call these guys." I said, "I'm a step ahead of you, buddy." I said, "I'm gonna be on there with them when we get out off this tour," and they were like, "Cool." So they're all looking forward to it. So they had a lot of really good feedback on, but the way you guys approached it and you handled it, it was phenomenal. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate it.
Thank you for the kind word.
Absolutely. We will stay in touch. Thank you so much, Brian. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome.
And tag teaming this. Steve Blaze from Lilian Axe, you're an inspiration and a phenomenal musician. And we look forward to having you back in the future, brother.
You got it, my friends. Take care.
All right.
You too.
Take care, buddy.
Bye-bye.
Okay.